So there is no I. And seeing through the self-delusion should stop all conversations. But the fact is that you still have a physical body, you still have a nervous system, you still have a functioning psychology, you still have an emotional intelligence, and all of those are based on causes and conditions and previous experiences. And they are active in an underlying belief. So when you see through self and that falls away, that changed nothing. There was no self to begin with. So it's not like something has ended that was there, because it was never there. And that's why it's still important to talk about. It's still important to talk about reactions. It's still important to talk about how you go about your everyday life, even though you have seen through self. So let's talk about it. So talking about awakening and talking about non-duality is all well and good. But if you don't apply it into your everyday life, it doesn't really matter. And that is why we're spending so much time this year talking about the practical part of non-duality, the practical non-duality. Because seeing through self for a lot of people is really changing everything in their lives. They plunge into that honeymoon period where everything is just wonderful. There's no attachment to anything anymore, and they see everyone with love and compassion. They're not attached to the self anymore in any way. But then a lot of people, they fall out of the honeymoon period and they just land smack down on the asphalt of reality, and it's just really in a lower place than before. And why does that actually happen? Why does that happen when there is no I to begin with? So seeing through self and that I to fall away, nothing has changed because it was never there. So what is actually happening? It's because that we still have a functioning body. We still have the meat suit. We still have a functioning physiology and psychology, emotional intelligence, and all of that is based on previous experiences and on causes and conditions. And that is still active. Nothing has changed with that, because all of that does not need a separate self to function, to exist. All of that is still in the world without the separate self. The separate self is not a real thing. So seeing through that that is not a real thing does not change anything. And that is why it's still important to work with all this. And it's why we created the Awakening Curriculum. It's for everybody that has seen through self or wants to see through self. But let's just take the first part first. All of you that have seen through self, that has realized that there is no separate I anywhere, but you still have reactions in life. You still have a partner that has a family that you're dealing with, and there might be lots of annoyance and irritation and anger arising. You still have kids that have issues, being bullied in school and not getting proper grades, or are struggling in any other way, or just being teenagers and slamming the door in your face. You still have all of those things. You still have your colleagues. You still have road rage. You still have all that, and all of that evokes reactions in the body. If you have any type of reaction, there is more work to do. And I know for a lot of people, they go into that spiritual, arrogant attitude that I don't need to work with it because I have seen through self. Well, if you haven't dealt with all the stuff that are creating underlying beliefs in you, then you're just spiritual arrogant, and you need to look at it. Because if you have any type of reaction, there's more to work with. There's more to reflect on. Any reaction calls for a reflection, because a reaction is based on an underlying belief, and that underlying belief is created out of selfing. If there is no I, if you really realize that any thought you have has no substance, that they are not real at all in any way, it's just a cloud passing, there is nothing substantial or intrinsic in a thought. You can think about a blue leprechaun and that's it. There's nothing that is evoking anything in you because there's no underlying belief attached to it. But if you think about the argument you had with a coworker or with your spouse lately, you feel your entire body is starting to get evoked into it. And that is where the reaction is. Now, that is only happening because there's an underlying belief. There's something about yourself that you still believe in. And you might say, but there is no I, there is no self. Well, great. Congratulations. If you still have a reaction, there's still an underlying belief intact, and you need to work with that. And it's why we created the Awakening Curriculum, because you can look at all these things without any type of suffering, without any type of pain into it. What we do with the Awakening Curriculum is that we look through the 10 different types of identification that we have. Now, it does not mean that any of those identifications are real or true or actual, because they're not. But they're based on underlying beliefs that might still be active when you have a meat suit. When you have any type of reaction, you get that a thought is happening. And that is connected with kind of like what Todd calls it, a haptic feedback. So you have a thought that gives a sensation in the body. And that sensation in the body now creates another thought. And then you have that feedback loop that is just going. And it's true. The I does not need to be there for that to happen, but the underlying belief is. So there's an underlying belief that is still intact. If you recognize yourself in this, go to the second fetter and start working with the doubt, because this has a foundation in doubt. A doubt is only happening when there are an underlying belief that is really, really strong, that is believed in, and another underlying belief that is equally strong and equally believed in. That struggle that is happening when two underlying beliefs that are opposites are equally believed in is creating doubt. That is when we're going from one to the other and we don't really know, and that is always where you land when you drop out of the honeymoon period. So go to the second fetter, start by the first lesson, and then work your way through. Do the exercises that is there, and then see through that toxic starting point that you have, that is present in every single decision you make, in every single conversation you have. You hear something because the ears are attached to you. And if you have tears in your ears, you hear something that is not really being said. You're reacting based on your causes and conditions, based on your previous built up psychology. And that is the foundation of every single reaction that you have. So go to the second fetter, work with it there, and then remember, for every reaction, there needs to be a reflection. I wish you and yours all the best. Thank you.